Someone came knocking at my wee small door. Someone came knocking, I'm sure, sure, sure. I listened, I opened, I looked to left and right, but not there was a stirring in the still, dark night. Only the busy beetle, tap-tapping in the wall. Only from the forest, the screech owl's call. Only the cricket whistling, while the dewdrops fall. So I know not who came knocking, not at all, not at all.
Welcome back to the Schorr Manor podcast season 2. We are on episode 6. Matt and Amanda here with a special guest. You all know him. You love him. His name is Drew. Welcome, Drew, to the podcast this week.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
I can't think of what to say now. It's been so long since I've been on the show. I don't know what to say. But that was a wonderful poem, though.
Well, thank you. Speaking of this poem, it was written by Walter de la Mare, a British poet, short story writer, and a novelist. He is best known for his children's stories and a highly acclaimed collection of horror stories.
Very nice. All right, so today's episode, we realized last year that we did not do this, and we were kicking ourselves for not doing it during season 1.
Certainly were.
So we decided to do a countdown of our top 10 Halloween songs. If you guys have been to our house on Halloween night, you know that we have music playing the whole night. We have a playlist. A lot of the songs are just like the same song but different versions. Matt's really into the heavy metal versions of everything. And so that's what we're going to do today is just count down our top 10. So starting at number 10, we have, please excuse the pages ruffling we have here in the background. Number 10 would be the song Things I've Seen by a band called Spooks. And the reason that I chose this song to be on this podcast is because it's of the video to it. There's actually like 2 different videos, but the one that I saw when I was in middle school or high school was them in like a hospital and they were pushing around bodies, and I thought it wasn't really super creepy. Also, I like the name Spooks because, I mean, how much more Halloween can you get? And so we couldn't find a lot of background info on the song, just basically that it's by the band Spooks, who took their name from a novel by Sam Greenlee, called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. It was a massive hit for the group, ranking as the number 11 hip-hop track in the U.S. in the year 2000, and in the same year as the most played song in Europe. Its album is called SIOSOS, and it sold almost 2 million copies, and it was featured in the Lawrence Fishburne film Once in the Life. So the video kind of reminds me of just like a horror movie, just the feel to it, the music and everything. So if you haven't heard the song, if you've never seen it, I highly suggest going on YouTube and watching the video. Like I said, there's 2 different videos. Watch the one where they're at the hospital.
I watched it too, and I gotta say, as somebody who saw A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, seeing Lawrence Fishburne in medical scrubs conjured up some spooky images for me. Drew, did you have any thoughts about this music video?
I didn't really watch it, I'm sorry. But I have heard the song in the past, so I do recognize it. I don't really remember the video, but I think I remember hearing the song on the radio, but I don't really have much opinion on it, which is probably why it's number 10.
Alright, so coming in at number 9 is a song that has been out for a long time, but I did not hear it until I was probably in my early 20s on Halloween Day. Actually, I was coming home from work to get changed to go to the Halloween party we were having, and it is called The Freaks Come Out at Night. This song was one of the first big hits for the 1980s hip-hop band Houdini, which consisted of a vocalist and a main lyricist named Jaleel Hutchins, co-vocalist Ecstasy, and turntable artist Grandmaster D. The reason why we put it on this list is, of course, who comes out on Halloween?
The Freaks.
The Freaks.
The Freaks.
If you are a true freak, you are very proud to be called one.
That's true.
Some more background about this song. At the time, the New York Times wrote that the song could be heard almost constantly in the New York dance clubs and urban radio stations. I'm going to have Matt say this name because I can't. Robert.
I believe it's Robert Christgau. I hope I'm saying that right.
Who was a music critic and senior editor for The Village Voice, called it a strong song, and it's still considered a classic today. And I mean, I have heard it on the radio, I think, every year for the past, 10 years on Halloween Day.
I think I would classify this song as, that song, because when you first told me about it, I said, I don't know this song, and you're like, yeah, you do. You've heard this song. I said, no, I can't place it, and then I played it.
Specifically played it for him.
Yeah, then I played it, and it's like, oh, yeah, that song. Drew, do you recognize this song? Does this ring a bell for you?
That song does not ring any bells, unfortunately. I don't think I've ever heard it.
Oh, well, you're missing out. It definitely earns its status as a classic, I think. And once I recognized it, I was sort of ashamed of myself for not immediately knowing what it was.
All right, coming in at number 8 for all of you Rocky Horror fans out there is The Time Warp. Of course, we all know that The Time Warp is from the musical The Rocky Horror Picture Show, and we'll give you some background about that song as well. It was part of the 1973 stage musical, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, and, of course, the 1975 film. I did not know that Rocky Horror was a stage production before it was a movie. The productions were tributes to all of the horror B-movies of the 1940s through the 70s. The Time Warp, along with all the other Rocky Horror songs, was written by Richard O'Brien, an English New Zealand actor, writer, and musician, television presenter, voice artist, and theater performer. Wow, he is a jack of all trades.
He did a lot.
The song has become one of the major audience participation segments during the film screenings and live performances. Absolutely, I get up and do it every single time. My husband can attest to that.
I can, totally.
Here we have that it occasionally gets played at dances and weddings. We should have played that at our wedding.
I thought that after I found that info. I started kicking myself.
The last bit of info we have is the Hillywood show once used it in a Doctor Who parody, and David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, said it was extraordinary.
That one, Drew and I, that one seemed like some important information to include.
Right.
This is one of those that everybody recognizes the time warp once it gets started.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a step to the left.
And a step to the right.
And then a jump to the right.
And I forget the next line.
Put your hands on your hips. Bring your knees in tight.
It's a pelvic thrust.
That really makes you go insane.
Insane, yay.
Let's do the time warp again.
Drew, would you like to jump in? Or do you want us to just move on to the next song?
Let's move on to the next song.
Okay, next one.
This is where you're really glad that we are not YouTubers, because we definitely would have to YouTube us doing this dance.
Yes, it would be the
I'm not a huge Rocky Horror fan. I do enjoy it, but I'm not as into it as most people are. But this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie because I love how the professor is literally explaining how to do the dance on a chalkboard behind him.
I have not to this day seen this film all the way through, and I need to because I messed up with this film. The first time I saw it was as a teenager, and I had no sort of explanation ahead of time. So when I saw it, I just this is so weird and bizarre, and I don't know, it flew over my head, and I just wanted no part of it. And since then I've learned more and more about it, and I'm just thinking, man, I wish I had watched that thing. Although I probably wouldn't have appreciated it at the time, but I'm just, right now, I'm just desperate for a chance to both see the film, and if it's ever on stage, I really want to go see it.
Oh, I do too. I would love to see it on stage.
Oh, I want to so badly, but now, unfortunately, having a 2-year-old and now an infant as well, it just makes it really hard to do. So I just don't know when that's going to happen. But we'll see. We'll give it a shot. So this time, I'm going to pass. Did you want to read this one, number 7 for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Since this song came out in the 80s, in the iconic 80s, 1984 to be exact, and it is the theme for Ghostbusters.
Who you going to call?
And who has not seen this movie?
Who has not heard this song?
I don't think, I mean, just like the Rocky Horror Show, I think people know the song more than the movie. But this song was written by Ray Parker Jr. He was a guitarist, singer-songwriter, and record producer, and this is easily his most well-known song. This was also nominated and won the Oscar for Best Song in 1984. Huey Lewis was contacted to create the theme for the song, but they turned it down. Apparently, Ray Parker said in interviews he only had a few days to come up with something, and he thought the film's title seemed impossible to include in any lyrics. He found inspiration while watching late-night television, where he saw a cheap commercial for a local business, which he thought was pretty similar to the movie's characters, so he wrote the song as a pseudo-advertising jingle that the Ghostbusters could have used to promote themselves. It debuted at number 68 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1984, and it reached number 1 in just a few months. It remained number 1 for 3 weeks. Now here's some interesting trivia. Huey Lewis, who turned down to write the theme, and his record label, Columbia, actually sued Ray Parker for plagiarism, claiming that the song was too similar to I Want a New Drug, which is a classic song by Huey Lewis and the News. And this is actually true because if you actually listen to both songs back to back, they are very, very similar in tone and style.
I've only heard I Want a New Drug a few times, so that was sort of news to me when I found this out.
Right. They settled out of court and the details remained confidential in 2001 when Huey Lewis commented in an episode of VH1's Behind the Music that Columbia actually paid Lewis a settlement. Ray Parker then sued Huey Lewis for breaching confidentiality.
That last part's funny. It's like, here's just one more you're going to get slapped with.
But Ghostbusters is a classic song for a classic film.
They got a lot of mileage out of that song, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how many... Of course, there's 2 movies. There were at least 2 cartoon shows that they did that I'm aware of. Because I know they did one based on the first movie, and they sort of brought it back for the second movie. And I think there were other incarnations of the animated series, too, weren't there? I mean... And then, of course, there's all kinds of commercials and just... I mean, and it still pops up on the radio today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that song is huge. Not that... Things worked out pretty well for Huey Lewis, too, who went on to do Back to the Future, but yeah, Ghostbusters is quite iconic, I think. I don't think Amanda is quite as enthusiastic about Ghostbusters as us, but you are well aware of that song, right?
I'm well aware of it. I have seen both of the Ghostbusters movies numerous times.
Thanks to me.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Okay. So what... All right, speaking of iconic music, shifting away from one with lyrics for a moment into musicals, this is the Halloween theme.
Coming in at number 6.
Number 6, thank you. In 1978, John Carpenter created what I would say is the blueprint for slasher films with Halloween, the movie about a mysterious killer named Michael Myers who sets out to kill a group of babysitters on Halloween night. Now, in addition to writing and directing the movie, John Carpenter also composed the score, which is probably as widely recognized today as anything by even John Williams. Drew, would you agree with me on that?
Oh, I completely agree.
Now, this song is, of course, entirely instrumental with just a simple piano medley. The only simpler theme that I can think of is Jaws, but that actually had an entire orchestra behind it. John Carpenter made something iconic with just one piano. He later said in an interview, quote, "I can play just about any keyboard, but I can't read or write a note." I can relate to this. He composed the entire score of this film in just 3 days. James, hope I say this right, Berardini, an American film critic and novelist, called the theme relatively simple and unsophisticated, but he also admitted it was one of the film's biggest assets. That's absolutely true. John Carpenter also got some help from Dan Wyman, a musician, educator, and composer who did work for movies like Apocalypse Now. He credited the theme as being performed by the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra, which I assume is a nod to his college years at Western Kentucky University.
That is correct, because he's also
He's an alumni.
grew up in Bowling Green.
There are actually a lot of town references that you can hear in those films, like Russellville actually pops up in Halloween 2, I believe it is.
Right.
Someone mentions that. But yeah, this theme, it's another one of those, the moment you hear it, I think within about 3 notes, you recognize what it is. It's iconic. And a part of why it works is because it's just so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
It's eerie and it's moody, and it's more than just, it's the sort of thing that can give you a feeling of dread in the moments leading up to something really horrifying happening, rather than just simply a bunch of, quick stingers, as they're called.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great song, and I think it gets played everywhere on Halloween nights.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to hear it somewhere. We've certainly played it at our house.
Absolutely. All right, coming in at number 5 is probably the theme song to our lives, actually.
Without a doubt.
Which is the Addams Family theme. If you follow us on Facebook, you'll notice I use the hashtag #RealLifeGomez and Morticia quite often, because we really are the real life Gomez and Morticia. When we're together with family, when we get together with my super Christian family, we all use plastic cups and we write our names on them. I always write Morticia and he always writes Gomez.
It's true.
So everyone knows who the cups are.
Sometimes I might forget farther away from Halloween, like on July 4th. Sometimes I'll forget, but she's there to remind me. Yeah.
So I'm sure everyone has heard of this. If you haven't seen anything from the Addams Family, you need to. It started out in the 1960s as a TV show. There have been at least, I think, 2 TV series since then. I believe there was a cartoon in the 90s. And I know that there was a show in the 90s as well.
Was there a show as well? I'd forgotten that.
Because there was the original 1960s version is black and white, and the other TV show was color. And, of course, we all know there have been at least 2 movies.
Yes, with the immortal Raul Julia.
Yes. There's the Addams Family Values, and I think the other one was just called the Addams Family.
Correct.
So, and stars who I consider to be the queen of these type of pop culture movies, Christina Ricci.
Yes. Wednesday.
As Wednesday Addams. So, of course, Mom and Dad are Gomez and Morticia. They have 2 children, Wednesday and Pugsley, and then in the Addams Family Values, along comes Hubert, which, if you have seen our logo, it is actually us as the Addams Family for Callum's second Halloween. He was Hubert Addams, and we were, of course, Gomez and Morticia.
Of course. And
which we also were when we were pregnant with Callum. We were Gomez and Morticia. A little bit of background about this song. The theme song was written and arranged by longtime Hollywood composer Vic Mizzy. He wrote several top 20 songs during the 1930s and 40s. And he's best known for both the Addams Family and Green Acres. Also a great show to watch if you're in the mood for just some slapstick comedy.
I think it's funny that
I grew up on that show. I love it.
I think it's so funny that Green Acres is, because you could not have just a more different show from the Addams Family. I mean, they're both charming and nice, but that you have this wealthy, aristocratic, kind of macabre family, and then Green Acres is all about country, down-home, good old boy values, and they're just such...
But when you think about it, people are always like, why are the Addams Family, why are they so weird? Well, because they can afford to be.
Yes.
That's kind of the same with Green Acres. He was a very rich person, and he got tired of the city life, and he wanted something simple, so he bought a farm.
Well, that's true.
And when you think about the theme, you got da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, and then Green Acres is da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na. So, I can kind of see the similarities between them.
He was his generation's Danny Elfman. All of his music sounded the
Apparently,
same,
yes.
too.
So, I did not know this, but it's actually performed on the harpsichord, which is, of course, the precursor to the piano, and is best known, of course, for when you snap your fingers at the opening. The song was so popular from the TV show that it was actually later released as a single. And, of course, it has been used in every single version of the Addams Family since then.
Yeah, I haven't seen a television series, movie series, anything referencing the Addams Family where those first few notes and finger snaps are not used. Like, Drew, are you aware of anything?
No.
Anything you'd like to add about the Addams Family?
It's a classic show, and I think if you've never seen the show or at least seen the two movies from the 90s, then you should definitely check them out.
I have heard there's talk of resurrecting this series as a new movie someday. Either a movie or a TV show. I can't remember which.
It is, and they are making a computer animated film.
Okay, that could be good. That's the sort of one I feel like you can resurrect for every generation.
Yeah,
so.
you definitely can if it's done the right way.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it started out as a comic in the New Yorker by a guy named Charles Addams.
Yes,
hence the Addams Family.
Oh,
Yeah.
and there's a third movie I had forgotten about that stars.
I have not seen this third one.
It's Tim Curry, right? As Gomez.
Yes, you're right.
It was
a
made-for-TV movie.
Okay, but I did.
TV movie, but so there is one that does star Tim Curry.
Oh, he's so many great things.
It's the clown.
Yeah, Pennywise. He was also.
Sorry, Pennywise. I don't watch those movies, so.
He was also Darkness from Legend. This guy is phenomenal at playing dark characters. He was almost the Joker, actually, in Batman the Animated Series. But if I'm not mistaken, the producers decided that he was too scary for the role. Tim Curry, quite a legend. I mean, is there anything he hasn't done that didn't turn to gold by him being in it?
Some people would consider the Addams Family movie to be.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say it. Plus,
it's kind of rough.
He was also in Congo, but we won't speak of that. We don't want to hold that against him.
All right, moving along. Coming in at number 4, we just did the Addams Family, so of course it is the Munsters.
Would it be fair to say that the Addams Family is the theme of our lives, but this one would be kind of a supplementary theme?
Yes, definitely.
I agree.
So, following on the success of the Addams Family, there was the show, The Munsters, which part of the reason that I really love this show is because they are the actual monsters. You know, you've got Herman Munster, who is quite obviously Frankenstein. You've got Lily Munster, who I don't think anybody really knows for sure what she's supposed to be. I think she's supposed to be a vampire.
I have always assumed she was a vampiress.
And then their little boy is Eddie Munster, who is, of course, a werewolf. They live with Grandpa, who is very much an older version of Dracula. And our favorite part is about their niece, Marilyn,
yes.
who is the normal one. She's the blonde bombshell, and they always talk about how ugly she is and how they feel so sorry for her because she's not pretty.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just...
And she feels the same way, doesn't she? She's like, oh, I'm so homely.
Really does. She does. And of course they try to tell her no, she really looks pretty, but you can tell how hard it is for them. This show will always have a special place in my heart because 3 years ago, when Callum was 2 months old, we went to the Superman celebration and we met Eddie Munster.
Butch Patrick.
We sure did. And it was my birthday, so he autographed a picture for me of the entire cast. And if you go to our Facebook page, you will see pictures of us. And there was somebody who actually built replicas of the cars.
Those were so cool.
They were amazing. The Dracula, and I forget what the other one.
I don't know what the names are. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so we got pictures with that as well. And so we'll give you a little bit of background about the song too. The theme song was an instrumental piece. There are no words to it, but it's still just as iconic to me as
I agree.
the Addams Family, the Halloween theme, anything like that.
I think within the first 3 notes, you know what it is.
Yeah, you do. It was composed by Jack Marshall. He was a guitarist, composer, arranger, and conductor who also created music for movies like Thunder Road and the Giant
Gila Monster.
Gila Monster.
I have not seen that, but just after seeing that title, I want to so badly.
Supposedly, it originally had lyrics, but the show's co-producer Bob Marshall never aired them. The theme was nominated for a Grammy Award in 1965, and the rock band Fall Out Boy would later use a sample of it in their song Uma Thurman.
That's some serious staying power. Because, I mean, that was, 40, 50 years later?
Right.
At least.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And so, unfortunately, the Munsters did not fare as well as the Addams Family. There's only 2 seasons of it, but there are several episodes per season. I believe it's still on Hulu. It was.
And it also got resurrected in the 90s for another.
Yeah, I was going to lead into that.
Sorry.
But they did the Munsters today, and that uses the original theme song, but that one does have lyrics as well.
Yeah, they kind of use it to explain the premise of the TV show.
Yes.
And then honestly,
it's not that bad. We watched it. It's not, of course, nowhere near as magical as the original with Fred Guine, because no one is going to touch him at all.
Yeah, that guy owns that role. But it was charming. It was fun. We enjoyed watching it. I don't know that we watched the whole thing, but we liked it. I don't know that there were any animated series attempts at that, but I know they tried a sort of edgy, modern retelling of it called Mockingbird Lane, I think. But all they ever did was a pilot, and it never got picked up.
So, little piece of random trivia. The address to the Munsters is 1313 Mockingbird Lane, and the address to the Addams Family is 1 North Cemetery Drive. Just FYI, a bit of useless trivia that I know, because I always want to change our mailbox to say that on Halloween.
I'm worried that the post office would take issue with that.
I probably would.
They're such downers, aren't they? Okay, so what's next on our list? Is this one for you to read?
I think we can all do this one. Coming in at number 3 is This Is Halloween, of course, from The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is one of my favorite movies. I mean, our son is 3, and he can pick Jack Skellington out of a lineup because he knows how much I love it. For Christmas, my mom got me a set of pajamas that have Jack on them, and he would walk around going, "It's Jack! It's Jack!" And
Yep.
Matt's sister and her husband got us a really, really nice Nightmare Before Christmas book that comes with like some DVDs and stuff with it. And Callum was looking through it every single page. There's Jack! There's Jack! There's
Yep.
Jack! There's Jack!
Yep,
So,
he knows.
Of course, this is the song from the opening of the movie, which we know every word of.
Yes.
We love the original version, and also, like, coming in at a close second for me would be Marilyn Manson's version. He does an amazing
Yeah, he does. He really does.
tribute to this.
He's really good at cover songs. The song was written by Danny Elfman, who I think most people know as the guy who did the Batman theme of 1989. It's performed in the film, of course, by the residents of Halloween Town as they're celebrating yet another successful Halloween night. It's been translated into a total of 15 different languages and covered by 4 different bands. Speaking of Marilyn Manson, he covered it in 2006 for a special release of the film's soundtrack, and later he included it in the 2008 cover album Nightmare Revisited. The song was also covered by Panic at the Disco in 2006 and by the Japanese rock band Sadie in 2011. Then again in 2014, Jonathan Young and Travis Cart, I hope I'm saying that right, they covered the song for the album Young Does Disney. Now here's an interesting bit of trivia that I only found out as I was researching this. Danny Elfman actually has a cameo in the movie Nightmare Before Christmas. He is a red-headed corpse who is tucked away in the upright bass of the Halloween Town band. So we now have an excuse to watch Nightmare Before Christmas again long before Halloween so that we can figure out where, so we can look for that scene.
I know that scene.
But apparently,
you don't need an excuse to watch Nightmare Before Christmas, but it's when Jack is coming back, right before Jack's Lament, where he's singing in the graveyard, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the corpse inside the base says, "Nice work, Bone Daddy."
It's hard for me to say. Like I didn't get a chance to look it up yet, but I can't quite tell if they're saying if that's supposed to be him or if there is this corpse just tucked inside it. Okay.
Yeah, there is, and I believe he has a line.
The corpse is the one that says that?
I think it is. It might not be. It might be the one that plays like the saxophone or something. But yeah, I remember that scene.
Well, getting to the bottom of this, call it an excuse, call it a reason, call it whatever you will, but it seems like a really good reason to pop in Nightmare Before Christmas to just determine this. I know we could probably look it up on YouTube, but why not just watch the whole thing? Drew, what are your thoughts on This Is Halloween?
Again, just like Ghostbusters, another classic song for another classic film. I agree. There's never not a reason to watch The Nightmare Before Christmas, especially at Christmas time or Halloween or Thanksgiving or any time of year.
Or even July 4th, right? Why not?
Right.
You can do Christmas in July. You can do Nightmare Before Christmas in July, right?
Exactly.
Right, there you go. Shall we move on to number 2?
And this is surprising because I thought this would be number 1, so I'm curious to see what is number 1 on this list. Number 2 is the immortal classic 1983 or 84 song by Michael Jackson. We all know it. It's Thriller.
Thriller.
Recorded and produced by legendary producer Quincy Jones. It was released as the 7th and final single from Thriller on January 23rd, 1984. Most people know it by the music video, directed by John Landis of American Werewolf in London fame. Premiered on MTV on December 2nd, 1983. Its most famous moment is Michael Jackson becoming a zombie and performing a dance routine with a horde of zombies.
That is such an awesome moment, too.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
And before that is the film within a film with Michael Jackson turning into a werewolf.
Yes.
Let's see. Rod Temperton, legendary songwriter, wrote the song. He wanted to be something theatrical to suit Michael Jackson's love of film. It earned positive reviews and became the album's 7th top 10 single on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It reached the top of the charts in France and Belgium, and in the top 10 in several other countries. Rod Temperton had previously written for Michael Jackson's 1979 album Off the Wall. He's quoted as saying, "I wanted it to build and build, a bit like stretching an elastic band throughout the tune to heighten suspense."
That makes me think of the music from The Dark Knight, the Joker's theme, where
Yes.
all it is this just constant and
then percussion.
I hated that theme. And people revere that thing, but I hated it. I mean, is anybody with me?
No.
Guess not. Okay, so back to Thriller.
His first version was titled Starlight, but the production team, led by Quincy Jones, thought the song should be the title track, and Starlight would make for a pretty weak album cover. They wanted something very mysterious instead. Rod Temperton considered a bunch of titles, including Midnight Man. Finally, he thought of Thriller, but worried that it was a crap word to sing. He thought it sounded terrible, and they got Michael to spit it into the microphone a few times, and it worked. So with the title settled, Ron Temperton envisioned a spoken word sequence for the ending, but he didn't know what form it should take. Finally, they decided to have a famous voice from the horror genre to perform it, and Jones' then wife, Peggy Lipton, suggested her friend, Vincent Price. The rest, as they would say, is music history.
And what must that be like to just have your wife be able to say, "Oh, let me call my friend Vincent Price to come do a spoken word session in your song"? I mean, man, that would be amazing. Talk about a legend of horror, Vincent Price. I mean, am I the only one who sees the weight of that?
And I think he makes the song, too.
You know, it's hard to say. The song would be very good without him. I think it would still work, but you're right.
But it's like icing on the cake.
It most definitely is. It would work without him, but he definitely adds something that just really makes it even more iconic than it would have been without him. It was a tough choice between that and what we went with number 1 because it is one of the Halloween songs of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Always
It's
will
the
be.
original Halloween song, if that tells you anything.
Oh, yeah.
And what is number 1?
So, number 1 is the 1962 hit by Bobby Boris Pickett, The Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash.
We chose
Monster
this
Mash.
as number 1 over Thriller because it's been around for so long and everyone knows it. I mean, I work in an elementary school. All the kids know the Monster Mash. They don't always know Thriller, but they know this song.
That's a pretty big testament to a song written and performed in 1962, and children today recognize that song.
I mean, it's pretty much played on repeat.
Yeah.
On the radio stations on Halloween Day.
If I'm not mistaken, it holds one of the records of being, if not the record, of being one of the longest regularly running songs in history as far as being on the radio. That's really what led us to make that number one. It's just its incredible staying power that it has enjoyed over the years. Thriller may one day get there as well. As a matter of fact, I think it will. But for now, Monster Mash, I think, definitely holds the title of being the king song of Halloween.
Well, what's so interesting about it, as Matt found while he was doing research on these songs, was that the song actually came out of Bobby's stage impressions. He did a stage impression of Boris Karloff, and he also sang in a band called The Cordials, and they told him that he should do something else because he was so good at his Boris impressions, and so he writes this song.
Well, it was getting a huge reaction, apparently, at the various nightclubs that they played at, and that's it's kind of a, I don't know if it's quite a rags to riches story. I don't know if he was just dirt poor when he wrote this song, but he wasn't the big deal that he became afterwards, that's for sure. But just one of the acts that they did, yeah, you're right, he got up and just would do a monologue with his impersonation of Boris Karloff. And audiences just responded to it. They thought it was great. And his band members, they said, hey, you should do something with this. And he did. And
so him and another band member composed the Monster Mash and recorded it with Gary S. Paxton. They were all credited as the Crypt Keepers.
That was a fun little tidbit there, because that gets referenced in the song, of course, as the Crypt Kicker 5.
Yes, I'm sorry, Kickers. I said Keepers. And so it was just really interesting when I found out that he did those impersonations of Boris Karloff.
I don't know if that was a stage name that he picked up, but he kept saying it was Boris. That's what he called himself. I don't know if it started with I don't know the quite sequence of events there, but clearly after this song, he was forever going to be Boris. When he got up to the pearly gates, I'm sure St. Peter said, "Oh, Boris, come on in. You wrote Monster Mash."
So the song was also partially inspired by an earlier hit by Gary Paxton called Alley-Oop, which is based on a comic strip, and the dance craze called the mashed potato. Monster Mash is a variation of the mashed potato, where the footwork is the same, but the arm movements are more Frankenstein style. The song was re-released and covered over and over again. The Beach Boys used to play it in their live performances. Vincent Price, if you know, issued a version in the 70s. And the Misfits recorded their own cover version in 1997.
There are two. I definitely want to hear the Misfits version of that song, because I think that would be great.
Cool.
But I really wish I could hear the Beach Boys singing that song.
Yeah. I'm sure we can find that somewhere.
That just, when I saw that the Beach Boys were covering it, I was like, oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. So, Drew, your thoughts on the Monster Mash, and do you think it has earned its status as number one on our Halloween song chart?
Well, me, just like most people, would probably place Thriller at number one, but I have no arguments on Monster Mash being number one, because one, it's been out longer, and has stood the test of time, I believe. And anybody from 1 to 100 can hear the song and have no issues with it. It's just a fun song, and it is a classic.
It's one of those songs that once it really gets going, you don't recognize it quite as fast as some of the ones on this list, but once people recognize it, I think everybody smiles. Wouldn't P.T. Barnum, wasn't he the one that said that's one of the greatest things you can do is make people happy? That's what they said on the movie they did about The Greatest Showman. Which we all know that film was so totally accurate. P.T. constantly was breaking out into song, right? Okay, well, there's our list. Feel free to get in touch with us. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Feel free to tell us.
Do you have any other information on these songs that we don't?
Yeah.
Because we would love to know.
Do you have your own list of songs that we may have missed?
Yeah, is there a song that you know of that we forgot?
Yeah, because I would say I had a few honorable mentions that we weren't able to make this list with, like Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne, and the Mr. Crowley would be another good one. Virtually Everything by Alice Cooper.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we forgot Feed My Frankenstein.
I did not forget it. I considered adding it, but then some of the ones on here I just thought, these... When I was picking my songs, I will just say, I said, these are a little bit more iconic than Feed My Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's not Knocking Feed My Frankenstein, though. That's a fantastic song. Not exactly one for people 1 to 100, though. I don't think you want your 6-year-old daughters or what listening to Feed My Frankenstein. Yeah, anyway, like I said, feel free to shoot us any songs that you think, anything that should make the list, and maybe we can work it in there for if we do this again for next season. What do you think? Okay. Well, I guess we'll just move into different plugs that we've got. I want to thank you guys for checking us out. Like Amanda was saying, we do have a Facebook page if you want to check that out and keep up with all of our current events, not to mention pictures and all of our various paranormal and spooky adventures that we have, right? So yeah, that's facebook.com/Schorr Manor. That's SCHORRMANOR. If you are interested in showing a little bit of extra support and buying a t-shirt from us, feel free. There's a link there on the site that says shop now. We also have a Patreon page, speaking of support, patreon.com/Schorr Manor again. If you want to check that out, see what kind of tiers we got, throw a little bit in the hat and help us cover the cost. Podcasting isn't free, as you may know. Also, some other social media things if you want to get in touch with me. I have a Twitter account, The Matt Schorr. That's TheMattSchorr. I am also on Instagram. You can follow me there, which is @TheSchorr. And if you want to contact me directly, feel free. I have an email address. I love to hear from people. It's mattschorr@hotmail.com. And you can, of course, check out information about me on my own personal website, which is www.mattschorr.net. And finally, if you would like, I do have one other podcast I'd like to make sure and mention, Tales from a Small Town Journalist, which is about all of the just weird, strange, and goofy experiences that only reporters working for small town newspapers are going to have. So feel free to check that out. Once again, I want to say, hey, thanks for checking us out, and thank you, Drew, for joining us one more time here.
Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to be on the next episode if I can.
Great. We'll definitely try to do this again sometime. Anything you want to add before we close out, darling?
I don't think so.
Well, stay spooky, everybody, and as we like to say here on Schorr Manor, happy haunting.